Nice.
Yeah.
So cool, dude. What's the tone you got going on there?
Right now, I've got this is based off of an AC-30. That's what this one is.
Okay.
So yeah, so a little bit thumpier like this, which is always kind of nice when you're. But then you can back it down.
Nice.
I'm trying to remember how that goes. Anyway, yeah,
Good stuff, dude.
yeah, it's fun.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You sound great. The
Thank you.
guitar tone sounds amazing. Um, People are filtering in for the old live session here for the creative workshop, the creative soloing workshop. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking your time out to be with Steve and I. I'm Dan Denley, founder of GuitarZoom.com, and this is my good friend Steve Stine. Today we are doing, I should say, hi, Steve.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Great. Welcome to the show. Uh, I always forget we're doing this two-camera thing, and so I'm thinking they're seeing both at the same time. But
I know you, and that's the thing for anybody watching. Dan and I could see each other the whole time, but they switch when we talk for you guys, so it's a little bit different for you than it is for us. Because I'm staring
yes,
at Dan right now, and you can probably only see me. So
that's right. Which is kind of weird for Steve and I, because if I laugh or say something or even snort, it's going to switch over to me, and so it's anyway. Thank you for being here, guys. We're doing another creative soloing workshop for you today. Today we are talking about vertical versus horizontal playing. So movement on your fretboard, vertically versus horizontally. A lot of people get stuck. It's real easy to get stuck or get stuck in a particular box. Steve's going to talk about how to break out of that today. If you want to learn that, then stick with us. If you would like to learn it even faster, go to GuitarZoom.com and check out Steve's brand new course. It's called Creative Soloing by Steve Stine. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And by the way, if you want to be notified of when we're going to do another one of these sessions, hit the old subscribe button and hit the notification button, and that way you'll get notified. We try to do them at the same time every day. If you're unable to make one of these sessions, don't worry. We're going to record them. They will be put in a nice, tidy playlist there for you on the YouTube channel. Wherever you're watching this, could be Facebook, could be Instagram, could be Steve Stine's YouTube channel, could be Guitar Zoom's YouTube channel. Could be our Guitar Songs channel. It just depends on where you're subscribed. But wherever you're subscribed at, we are going to put that playlist there for you. Just go to the channel, click playlist, and then you'll see Creative Soloing, all of the workshop series that we've done for you. And we've already done several of these, Steve. We've done meandering. We've done phrasing. We've done intervallic soloing. We've done dynamic contrast. We've done creative scale patterns. I wrote down George Lynch, hammer-ons, pull-offs, sliding, vibrato, bends, double stops, techniques. I'm not sure we went into all that. I'm not sure exactly what that
well, I
note
think
meant.
we went in, at some point. They weren't separate things, but we've talked about all those things.
For sure. And then we did our easy arpeggios for creative guitar solos. And we did chord chasing. I forgot about that. That was a really fun one, actually. So anyway, guys, if you want to be a part of this and continue to get notices, click subscribe, click notify. And if you want to get the course, it's called Creative Soloing. It's at GuitarZoom.com. Take it away, my friend.
Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about, like Dan said, vertical versus horizontal playing. And really the reason, again, is to get you out of the standard frame of mind and start thinking a little more creatively about some of the things that you can do. So when we as guitar players learn scale positions, most of the time we learn them, vertically. So we learn how to play whatever scale, moving this direction. And that's great. And obviously we're going to use that. But what I want you to start thinking about is the fact that moving horizontally can be very, very creative and certainly very melodic because it disables the ability to run the normal route of learning a lick or whatever it might be, or the way that you move through. And again, I'm not saying any of those things are bad. We need all of that. But when you move horizontally, you're not able to do that. Let's say you restricted yourself to simply one string, right? You were just going to solo on one string for a period of time. Think about all the things that you couldn't do because you couldn't do your normal licks and things like that for the most part, right? So what happens is when you restrict yourself to moving horizontally, and let's just say for now a single string, it almost begins to sound a bit more like a piano because you really only have that one availability of that single string. So for instance, if I was playing on the second string there, and again, I can be an A minor, it doesn't matter, but if I'm right? I can come up with stuff and it's going to, by nature, sound a little more melodic because I don't have all of the other elements that a guitar player is used to using. They're not available at my disposal right now. The thing about horizontal playing is you always have to remember that you're dealing with really two essential must-know techniques, which are you're going to lift your hand to reposition yourself, or you're going to slide. That's really the only way you can get from one place to another. So if I wanted to go from up here, let's say I'm at 12, 13, and 15 because I'm in A minor here. So I'm up here. And I want to go down to 5 to continue on with what I'm doing. I'm either going to have to lift up my hand and move down, which is fine, or I'm going to slide. And that slide element is what gives you a little more of that, you know, for lack of a better term, kind of Steve Vai-ish or Joe Satriani-ish sound, are those wider slide intervals. And I just love to slide around the guitar. It's one of my favorite things to do, even if it's not wide intervals, even if it's just... I love that sound. You see? So that's one of the nice things is you could be coming off a particular lick. Maybe you're playing, you know, something like that. So you're playing your normal licks, or maybe you're doing something a little more minor. But then you drop into... You drop into something a little more melodic right there. And then I can go back into... You see? So I can drop back and forth between all of these things. And this horizontal playing is really great too if you know your octaves. You can use a lot of your octave playing, which always kind of reminds me of like Jimi Hendrix with that kind of stuff. But I love those kind of movements. So that's what I want. Again, it's not like we have a huge conversation about this, but I want you to just be thinking more about the fact that just like this dynamic contrast that we've been talking about throughout this whole workshop, this is a contrast. It's a contrast in your visualization and your ability to execute on the fretboard.
Yeah, that is a super cool concept. I think it's really easy to get stuck like in one mentality of like, I'm just in this box and I need to move to this next scale pattern, and you're just moving vertically all the time and forget about all the notes across the entire fretboard.
Right, and you can see how this all can be very... It seems like it's a lot of stuff, but if you, again, keep remembering that the whole point of all of these conversations we're having and the point of the guitar course is creativity. It's not about how fast you can do something or how much you understand about. And again, I'm not downplaying the importance of any of those things. They're all incredibly important. My point is to change the way you think about what you're trying to do and the way you see your fretboard to come up with some new things. And oftentimes when you're trying to do that, you might really need to play slower. And you might need to create some more space in between things to give your brain more time to decide what to do next. And that's okay. You know, especially if maybe you've got some licks or something that you can play faster, or you've been working on for a long time and really, spent your heart and soul developing these things, you can still use all that. It's just when you're done with that, then wrap around that with some of this other stuff. Because again, I know I talk about these things quite frequently, but I always think like as a guitar player, when you're improvising, there's like elements of solid know-how every once in a while in your solo. These are like your concrete bricks that you're trying to connect to, right? They're stuck and they're very functional. But in between those are all of these elements of creativity that are happening in between those. You see? And for me, that's one thing that I learned early listening to players, especially like Joe Satriani. Now, as much as I play like the Ibanez Gem and things, and don't get me wrong, as much as I love Steve Vai, Joe Satriani was always the guy I could relate to in my head. Because when I saw him play or I heard him play, it made more sense to the way my brain thinks and my fingers move. It just always did. And that was kind of Joe Satriani's thing, is he would plant, right? He'd plant these things, and then around it, he would jam. And then he'd come back. I don't know if we're having a storm or what the deal is.
Are you having an earthquake?
Yeah, let's hope not. So he would plant these ideas, and then around those, he would kind of improvise, right? So when you'd see Joe Satriani live, he would have those. Are we having an earthquake out there, or what was the deal?
Big thunderstorm. I've never seen our windows rattle like that before.
Oh, well, hopefully we'll keep our electricity going here.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah. If it does go out, you'll know why. So,
Talk
anyway.
about the bricks and the pillars and weaving them all together.
I need some of those bricks right now for sure, yeah. Anyway, so when he would solo, that's what I noticed about a guy like that, and it always made sense to me in my playing, was to plant some elements that would kind of, you could direct to and you'd be safe right here. And then you go out and you explore and then you come back. So if you think about that, like if you had a main lick or something that you like to do, it's from there that you decide where you want to go. So you might keep coming back to, right? And then I go off. And then I come back, right? And that's my song or whatever it might be. And you hear that a lot. So that's something, this horizontal movement is something that you can definitely utilize in your playing to kind of break you out of that monotony of always thinking about the scale shape. But of course, you do need to know where the notes are on that string. So you'd have to study a little bit. If you're using, like I did, A minor or A minor pentatonic or whatever, you've got to be able to visualize that A minor pentatonic or that A minor diatonic on your guitar, of course.
Love it, Steve.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to mention a couple of resources for you for those who are just now joining us or may have joined us a little bit late. When you were talking about connecting all those scale patterns, Steve, it reminded me of the Unlocking the Fretboard Connection course that you created a few years ago. That's one of our best-selling courses and one of the highest rated courses we have, Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. So guys, if you don't know those pentatonic patterns, those diatonic patterns, that course, that's what the entire thing is that. So it's all your pentatonic patterns. So there's 5 of those, obviously. And then there's diatonic patterns. There's 7 of those. And then how all of those go together. And it's called Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. That's a course you can get at Guitar Zoom. Just go to the homepage, click on shop, and then it's right there, Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. The course we're talking about right now is called Creative Soloing. And that's Steve's newest course. It does not go into all these scales and all of that because we've done that in other courses. The creative soloing course is about being creative in your soloing. It's about using dynamic contrast. It's about chord chasing. It's about vertical and horizontal movement. It's about sliding and bends and articulation and different techniques that you can use to really take your solos in another direction and be more expressive, more creative, more musical. So that's just a little distinction between those two things. All of those courses are available at Guitar Zoom. We have some special bonuses actually right now for the for this particular creative soloing course. And so anyway, if you want to go there and check that out, you can. Where do we go from here? I love that lift and shift idea that I wrote that down, lift and shift or slide. Like either there's only two ways to get your hand down
Well,
the
obviously,
fretboard.
yeah. I mean, if I'm moving from the 12th fret to 5th fret, the only way I can do that is I'm either going to lift up my hand, which is going to cause a pause, right, in the music, which is great. Right? So, I mean, the listener hears something low and then all of a sudden hears something high or vice versa. And then the slide is just giving you more of a dynamic effect. Which always sounds really nice. I love the sound of sliding. You know, there's just a lot of really great things you can do just with one string like that, making melody. Now, again, this isn't really, you know, I'm not approaching this from a speed perspective, but you could certainly, you know, do licks like that, things like stuff like that you might like to do as well on a single string. But I always think really the thing about the single string is that it just gives me this piano effect of limiting all of the noise around it. And it sounds terrible when I say it that way, but of all those other strings and being compelled to want to play all this stuff, and it just forces me in to just try and kind of focus on that melody.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Simplifying it, keeping it on one string.
Yep. Yeah, and I wouldn't do that the whole time, obviously, but it's just a contrast to the other things I'd be doing.
Yeah, I notice that's a big theme with you is contrast, and I think that's why your playing is so cool to listen to. It makes it so interesting, is that you never know what you're going to do next, whether it's loud or soft.
When I was in my 20s, I had lunch with a famous jazz guitar player, and I remember we were sitting there. He was coming through doing guitar clinics, and I was working at Schmidt Music, which is a local guitar store. And so he was doing a clinic at Schmidt Music, and so he and I went out for lunch. And I was very green, in terms of understanding the industry and just, my own playing and all that sort of thing. And I remember asking him, like, what do you think about when you're soloing? Like when you're playing guitar, what's going on in your head? And I'm sure that's probably a pretty overwhelming question to ask. But he said something along the lines of, if I realize I've been playing it, I've probably been playing it too long.
Interesting.
And I always thought that was interesting, and that's where kind of the dynamic contrast thing came from for me. That doesn't mean you don't want repetition, and I'm sure he didn't mean that, right? It's that if you're sitting in this position playing these 5 notes and it's just going, after a while, you need to change that up. There's got to be something dynamically different that changes with that. It doesn't necessarily mean new notes. It doesn't necessarily mean a new position. It can mean all or none of those things. We're all different, but it's just you're trying to kind of change, like we've talked about before. It could even go from being it could be loud. There's just a million things you can do, from volume to speed to, the way that you phrase, certainly to the more, sort of concrete things like the scale that you're using, or the notes that you're playing. Obviously, those things make a difference too. But there's all of these realistic elements that can really make a difference too. So don't always think it's, I got to know more scales or I need to know more theory. Again, maybe you do, but it's not always that. Just because you know a bunch of theory doesn't mean that you can play in a musical sense. It just means you understand music theory. I can read a bunch of stuff about being a doctor. It doesn't make me a doctor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So and again, when I say that, I'm not downplaying the importance of theory. I'm saying once you've learned how to make music, theory can elevate that for sure. But you got to make music. It's about making music. There are wonderful musicians out there that use a lot of theory, and there's wonderful musicians out there who use no theory. It's about this. It's about these and this and this. It's trying to make that connection.
Yeah, it's interesting. But the theory thing, I have 3 sons and all of them play piano, and I do too. And I learned that kind of traditional way of, you learn the notes. This is a G clef. This first line is an E. The second line is a G, et cetera. And I learned all that stuff. And then my kids learned from a Japanese teacher who taught the Suzuki method. And that method, you don't learn notes at all at first, And my oldest son, he literally had his first recital when he was 3 years old. And he basically started out with that Suzuki method. And anyway, the point I'm driving at is they never learned music theory until they were in their teens. I mean, they learned notes and how to read music and all that stuff. But in terms of like, this is a tonal cadence, it's a 5-to-1, all that stuff like that I learned, they learning that stuff. And guess what? All 3 of them can run circles around me in terms of their playing ability.
Right.
Now, I don't know if there's a connection there. I just know that from the beginning, the whole idea was to make piano fun.
Right.
Just play. We'll learn notes and stuff later. And so I think there is an element, that's what I love about this course, is that it's about creativity. And you constantly keep saying, now, if you know your scales, if you know this, that, and the other thing, great. But what I really want you to think of is, how it sounds, how it feels, how it looks. I mean, you got to know both. It's not an either or. You really need to know both.
Well, and that's the thing with guitar playing and guitar teaching, is that I've never really tried to live in a world of absolutes for anybody. Like, you absolutely need to, we all know there are things you need. If you want to play rhythm, you got to know what a D and a G and an A chord are, right? Or power chords if you want to play rock and roll. There's just things that, but how deep you know them is relative. You might play a D chord all your life and never know what notes are actually in that chord. So We're all different that way. And that's what I'm always trying to get across, is that my job is just to try and meet you where you are. If you're learning whatever, you can use this information there. If you're over here doing whatever, you can use this information over here. Because at the end of the day, it's just about trying to enjoy what you're doing. Even if, like I said, that doesn't mean it will never be frustrating. Guitar should be frustrating on some level, but it can't be so frustrating that you're not enjoying yourself. You still have to find enjoyment in what you're doing, or why in the heck are you doing it in the first place? Right. And then the second thing is being motivated to try and do better, right? To try and, now be aware of these things. I should know this scale. That really would benefit me. Or I should know this piece of understanding, which we call theory, or this particular technique. Those things really, I can see now that that's something that I could really benefit from. Well, now is a perfect time then to attack that, because you've become aware that it's something that you need in your playing. Versus somebody telling you, well, you should know what a Phrygian dominant scale is. Well, okay, maybe you should, or maybe you shouldn't, right?
Right.
But oftentimes you might not be in a place where that's something that's really going to benefit you. It's just somebody's thrown something at you as a talking point, or somewhere that they're in their journey thinking that that's right, and it's not really where the learner is. And so that's something I just always want you to think about. It's not that any of it is good or any of it's bad. It's just meeting you where you are.
Right. I think I love the whole analogy you used there. A lot of people do take this approach that it's an all or nothing thing. Like, either I'm going to learn everything there is to learn about theory, or I'm not. Like, there's 2 camps. Like, theory is really necessary. Yeah. Theory's not necessary, right? And then I love the fact you're like, no, not there. There's not any absolutes. It's like, if you need to know what a Spanish Phrygian mode is, then go learn that and then apply that to your playing. And then you'll realize, there's all these other modes too. And then go down that road and learn that stuff.
Right. And if you don't know anything about the first steps to get to Spanish Phrygian, what good's it going to do you?
Right.
See, that's the thing, is like, when I used to teach guitar lessons, I'd have a student come in, a new student, and I'd say, so, tell me about yourself. What do you like to do? And what kind of music do you listen to? And now let's talk about your guitar. What's some things that you know how to do on the guitar? And they'd go, well, I know, the notes on my first string or something. And then I know how to play a G major scale. And I'd go, okay, so can you play that for me? And they'd go, right, and they'd play a few notes of a G major scale or whatever. And I go, so do you know any songs or anything? No, I don't know any of that. My teacher was teaching me how to read music, and I learned the G major scale. And I'm like, so every day you get up and get your guitar, And your
Brutal.
practice at 11 years old consists of going through your notes and playing a G major scale. There's a complete disconnect from what you enjoy and the reason you wanted to play guitar in the first place to let's just do trigonometry every day. See what I'm saying? And I just always defy that. I'm not saying that learning the G major scale is bad. I'm not saying that learning your notes is bad. They are all wonderful. But is that really what that student needed to get motivated to want to play? Or could I have taught him, right, something where that student goes home and he or she goes, wow, this was great. Look what I learned how to play. I don't know. So motivation is just so important. And then filling in the gaps with something that takes you, that elevates you, right? The light bulb theory, I call it, where you go, oh, I never thought about that. Or, wow, that makes sense to me now. Well, those are perfect times to insert those thoughts, is when there's an opening and now that makes sense. That would fit right here. The G major scale would fit. Right now, we are ready for that. But you start somebody off, in the beginning and you're going, okay, so what are you going to do with that? Well, I don't even know what it is. I don't even know why I'm learning it. My teacher just told me. Well, I've always tried to kind of battle against that logic because I don't know that you play for 30 or 40 or 50 years or whoever knows how long with that logic,
Right.
I think you play your whole life because you're excited about it,
Yeah, I just thought of an analogy I heard a guy give one time. I played baseball for 12 years, and I remember, you take a kid out on the baseball field and they're 6, 7, 5, I don't know, go take them out on the baseball field. The first thing you do is you put a glove on their hand, you put a ball in their hand and the other hand and say, hey, I'm going to walk over here. I want you to throw me that ball. Or, hey, here's a bat. I'm going to toss this thing underhand at you. I'm going to just smack as hard as you can. And you get the kid excited about playing the game and, just the fundamentals of having fun and like team sports and running around the bases and trying to beat the other team. And like, that's fun, What you wouldn't want to do is take that same child out there and say, now, let me explain to you the rules of the game. If the ball is hit this way on this, left-hand side of the dirt, then it's a foul ball. And this is a balk when the pitcher does this. And here's this other rule. Like the kid would be like, I quit. I don't want to learn this crap.
And the point is that those things you just mentioned are all elements that should be inserted at the right time.
Yes.
There is always opportunity to educate, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's all education if you do it the right way, but there's always if you're good at what you do, you try and insert that stuff in the right place along the journey. So the person that's learning goes, oh, it fits in. And it isn't this whole cosmic, I don't get what you're saying. I don't understand. This isn't fun anymore. You're confusing me. And now I'm scared because I don't understand. It's a logical insertion of that information at that time where the person goes, oh, well, that makes sense now. I didn't understand that. I'm trying to think. There was something with Emmy. Oh, it was, hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Right? So hand sanitizer. So she's like, well, my food tastes weird after I use hand sanitizer. And we're like, well, you know what? We never told her that you need to wait a little bit after you put the hand sanitizer on before you eat, right? Because maybe in our mind, we just assume that you would think about that, right? But that assumption's wrong. It's telling her, look, after you put on hand sanitizer, just wait a few seconds, wait 20 seconds or 30 seconds until it's completely dry. And then, and then eat. And it was just, that was a perfect learning moment for me, just because we always make assumptions. We assume everybody knows everything, right? And then that's what makes us bad at teaching or incorrect, right? Is we're not really paying attention to the ability to teach those times. We just assume that everybody understands everything because we understand whatever it is. And I just thought that was really interesting because, she's not dumb, she just didn't think about it. And for me to go, that was a perfect opportunity for me to go, look, you just need to wait a little bit and then you're fine. And she goes, oh yeah, okay. And we're good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. This has been a fantastic workshop today. Do you want to show us anything else about vertical?
No, I think we're good. I think that's a great thing to go and practice and give a try to. So
yeah, I do too. Guys, Steve and I cannot thank you enough for being here with us and hanging out with us during these live sessions. We really appreciate your time. It means the world to us. If you would like to be notified of the next session that we do on creative soloing, you can just hit subscribe and notify. And if you want to check out Steve's new course on creative soloing, it's called Creative Soloing by Steve Stine. And it's available at guitarzoom.com. Steve, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy. And thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye.